Hello, how are you? This is Camino de Agape, a blog dedicated to Catholic faith and also to conversion and to the spiritual journey I'm on at the moment. I'm currently writing some texts and I want to share one with you guys. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for listening. Lucid Naivety. There is a line so thin it is almost imperceptible, and yet so charged that crossing it alters the entire grammar of a life. It is the line between conversion and the disciplined daily practice of faith. From within, it feels less like a rupture than a return, a gradual realignment of vision, will, and love. From the outside, however, it rarely is read as continuity. It is interpreted as excess, deviation, collapse. In a world that has enthroned itself and its own final authority, any change that does not originate in the self is immediately suspect. Modern secular sensibility has little tolerance to transformations that cannot be explained in therapeutic terms. Where transcendence has been evacuated, depth is mistaken for disorder, fidelity is reframed as fixation, perseverance becomes pathology, and religion, when taken seriously and lived openly, it is not perceived as a way of inhabiting a reality, but as an obsession, an unregulated intensification of something that should have remained private, symbolic, or mild. I have learned that a Catholic life lived without embarrassments provokes a particular kind of reaction, not outrage, but pity, a low-voiced pity disguised as concern. One hears the murmurs, something intensified, something resurfaced. Oh, she took it too far. The vocabulary is telling. Faith is not judged on its truth, but on its dosage. God, it seems, is acceptable only in small doses, non-invasive quantities. Anything more is read as imbalance. I do not write this from innocence. I know the language of diagnosis. I carry a history that can be easily weaponized into an interpretive key for everything now I am. I'm familiar with the ease with which a conversion narrative can be flattened into a clinical one, with how quickly grace is reclassified as symptom and devotion as relapse. In a culture that trusts charts more than confessions, the soul is always secondary to the file. And yet I saw this without defensiveness. It is not conversion that fractures the human person. It is the slow suffocation of a life lived without God that erodes coherence from within. That is called stability in the secular imagination. Often rests on a remarkable fragility, a constant effort to distract oneself from meaninglessness through comfort, productivity, and control pleasure. The absence of God does not scream, it numbs. Numbness, unlike anguish, is socially acceptable. The unapologetic believer unsettles precisely because she refuses to conceal her access. She lives though God were not an accessory to her life, but its measure. This is deeply offensive to a world that insists that self must remain sovereign. The scandal is not moral rigor, it is reorder love. To place God above reputation, approval, or psychological plausibility is to expose the arbitrariness of all other hierarchies. At times, I admit, pity reverses its direction. I find myself grieving not with superiority, but with gentle sorrow for those who measure their lives exclusively by their failures, who carry guilt as though it were final, who believe they must bear the weight of their errors alone. They do not know that God does not remove the cross in order to save, but chooses instead to accompany the one that carries it. They do not know that one can suffer with God rather than merely under oneself. Faith has not made me less acquainted with pain. It has made me less isolated with it. It has not anesthetized me against the world. It has taught me how to endure it without becoming cynical or hollow. I still carry the cross, but I no longer mistake it for abandonment. I carry it because He did it first, and because love, when it's real, is never weightless. If this posture appeals naive, so be it. But it is not naivete of ignorance, it is the naivete of someone who has descended and returned, someone who has seen the life, what life becomes when God is removed, and who has chosen deliberately, soberly, without romanticism, to live otherwise. This is not innocence preserved, it is innocence regained at a great cost. I do not fear being misunderstood. I fear only the subtle violence of living as though God were optional. I prefer the excess of faith to the deficit of meaning. I prefer to be judged for loving too much rather than pitied for loving nothing at all. Because one that has rested even briefly in the presence of God, the world's self-sufficiency reveals itself from what it is, an elaborate and exhausting illusion. This is not psychosis, it is orientation, not obsession, but fidelity, not naivete, but lucid surrender, and I will not apologize for it. Thank you so much for watching. This was Camino de Agape. If you want to follow my journey, please do it so. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.